Okay. You were saying?
Sorry for that. So, but the gig itself, the experience of doing the gig itself, to me, it felt like I was back on the treadmill that I didn't want to be back on in my life. I didn't want to be.
That gig was successful first and foremost. A lot of guys came, blankets got.
It was very beautiful. Like our lead producer, like Justine, shout out to you forever. Justine was on her A game. I think she'd really missed it. You know, Blankets has a different budget that, you know, so African Nouveau is a startup. It's the baby.
Yeah.
Like, so how you approach is quite different. And for people who hadn't then been to Blankets in a year to come back to Blankets and just be like, oh my God. So for people who had stopped coming in 2014 when they're like, you guys are not bringing anybody, for them to come back and just be like, now you're in a new venue. We're at Ngong Racecourse at the waterfront. The beauty of the venue, the way we had set up the venue, the quality of the music on that day, it was just like, yo, you're really back though.
Guys are like, hey, you know the way
missed you
sometimes
so much.
you take something for granted, and then you're like, hey, never go again.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
please don't ever go again. Blankets be back. But me, to be honest, my heart, I was just like, It isn't Blankets that I was having. It was just like, I didn't want to go back into gig life problems, those things. I didn't want to do those things. I think I had already now understood it's okay. You've set up something that my job really should be to transition myself out. Not to try and do this schlep again. But when we came back, now there were some decisions we'd made with my business partners. So by this time, we've formed another company. We've taken on some equity.
Can I ask who your business partners are, or you're not in?
They're called business partners. Right?
You don't get it all right here.
But but the feeling was, you know, for us, it was, we have something on our hands, but I am not optimized in a CEO role. That's not when I am optimized. And because of that, the fatigue, the resentment, the feeling like I'm always choosing my life, it would mean that I'm not always in this thing. So our first decision was, you know, maybe we do it less. So instead of doing it monthly, maybe we do it quarterly. So then I'm still able to do my music stuff, and we're still able to put on something useful for the city. We also felt like maybe the frequency at quarter would allow us to more time to fundraise, more time to find like artists of who have something that they want to put on, you know, we're like, how can this be more useful than just a gig? Could this be that you have this album that you want to put out, so that then Blankets becomes your album show? So just we thought that maybe giving it some breathing
space,
would allow everybody also on the team to replenish, just like emotionally replenishing from a gig. So that's when Blankets became, I'd say, kind of quarterly. 2016, 2017. Those 2 years we ran it kind of quarterly. Finally, it didn't work as well for multiple reasons. The first one is quarterly is still as much work as monthly. It sounds like not so much on paper. In reality, it's still just as much work. The business model had now changed. For all the years we had done Blankets, by doing it monthly, we always, our cash flow was good, right? It also meant that the low months could be balanced out with the high months. And I think I should also say this, a fundamental reason why Blankets has lived all this time is because the money that Blankets makes goes back into Blankets. So it goes back into the team, it goes back into the musicians, it goes back into production. So in reinvesting in the business, we've been able to grow ourselves up to where we are now. So now, without this sort of regular cash flow, the business model now for us internally changed. So how much money, when you do these gigs, what is the scale of the gig? What is the scale of fundraising? What is the scale of ticketing? What is the scale that you need to do a quarterly business? but still have annual income. I don't know
Yeah.
if I'm making
No,
sense to you.
it makes sense. And even from a sponsorship perspective, it's better for me to jump into a
3-4 times a year thing.
no, every month thing.
A month thing, yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
The sponsors found it better to be on a monthly thing. The way it just wasn't a life flow that made sense. So I want to be very honest and say 2016 and 2017 were very, very shaky years in the business. We were not, the new business model was difficult to get into. One of our colleagues had sort of transitioned into the role of the everyday manager of the business, which is a different skill set. And I don't know that we were utilizing that resource we had at optimum. So those were not very comfortable years in our history. 2016, 2017.
Can I ask another question?
Those were very
how then
complicated
are you
years.
eating?
So now, so we have this, right? And like I said, we had raised some equity.
Okay.
So that was very important for me in guaranteeing at least, salaries for colleagues. And then I was doing music.
I get, okay.
So 2016 and 2017, I continued doing the summer touring in Europe. There were smaller tours. There were like maybe, let's say, 15 shows in Switzerland. They were mostly Switzerland. So 2015, 2016, and 2017, we mostly did almost exclusively, even 2018 was just Switzerland. So the way to think about it is how you can do a Kenyan tour and have like 40 dates all over Kenya, but now just replace Kenya and put it in Switzerland.
Yeah.
Right? So between that, some royalties money from the Switzerland side.
So Muthoni
So those years were
Drummer
not
Queen.
very comfortable.
But Muthoni Drummer Queen is known as a musician in Switzerland.
First in Switzerland, they're like, it's cool that you have a festival. I suppose it's very far from the imagination that you have a festival. The festival, can I call it circuit in Switzerland is very advanced. A lot of it is now owned by, let's say, companies or conglomerates. So it's not that, I'm sure they are there. There are a few, we've even performed at them, but by and large, you would find venues, festivals are owned by venues or companies.
Yep.
It's not really often, I haven't found very often that it's run by just like some individuals. Of course they're there, I'm not trying to say that they're not, but by scale.
Yep.
So maybe it's just far from their imagination. Also, they don't have the context of Kenya. These things that you're doing in Kenya, those things don't matter in some ways. You know them, they've met you at music.
Yeah.
So I must say that's a big part of the relief I would experience when I would go to Switzerland.
It's not like the way you were called in Malawi with Sauti Sol.
Yeah, there's no context for me. Then they only know you as a musician. They don't know all these other things. Oh, you run a festival. Oh, that's cool.
Back to your music.
Whatever. That's in your country. That's nice. That's an add-on, but it's not the reason why we are engaging. We're engaging with you because we like this music, we like the stage performance, we like the costumes, we like the story of artistry, and there's a cherry on the cake that you're also a babe who runs like a gig. Amazing. So I had the space.
But what I mean is your music has penetrated within Switzerland. By the time you're doing,
So these are the years that now we were building out
Okay.
our Swiss presence. The music is on the radio, so you go, you do a series of shows. Those people know about those shows. The next year you're invited to play another series of shows. There were some moments there where my friends were like, at least one friend, Bobo, she's like, okay, you don't maybe think about relocating to Switzerland, because the demand for the product was always higher than the amount of time I had to give there, right? But I think it's also important to say, like, remember what I said, a lot of the clubs are set up as venues, right? So they are venue clubs. So I know for a fact if I was living in Swizo, me, Greg, and who could probably have 2 or 3 gigs every weekend. There's no question about that. The infrastructure exists and the market interest also exists. But I didn't feel in those years that I had the luxury of being like, okay, now I've just moved to Switzerland for like 6 months to do this music thing, because we have this business that used to be like this that is now transitioning into this other thing. We're exploring Rwanda. So I'm not the CEO, but I'm kind of still like an acting CEO. So those were 2016, 2017.
Difficult years.
Those were difficult years. But in the process of doing all those things, 2017 we start recording She.
With Greg and Hook.
So now for us, anytime I say Suizo, just know I mean Switzerland. Right? It's like Nyez. Nyeri. It's become so...
Nyez is Nyeri.
Nyez is Nyeri. If you're from Nyeri, we call Nyeri Nyez. You know, it's become such a part of my...
Yeah, it's like Costo. And you mean Mombasa.
Exactly. So for me, Suizo, it's become home. So Greg and Hook in the summer of 2017, we take over Greg's mom's house.
By the way, let me just say this: we have to come back. There's something that you said, living off royalties.
Yeah,
that's a convo on its own.
That's a convo on its own.
I just want to plug it there.
Let me just tell you, there are other ways this thing can happen. You get.
Yeah.
So we start recording She. When we started to record She, we didn't know we were recording She. We knew we needed to have new music, MDQ and Upgraded. They had done well, right? In 2015, I'd even done the live show for Upgraded on the rooftop of Homeboys.
Nice.
We'd done a live broadcast of the show for 2 hours. It was very dope. And
Yes, actually, I remember that.
Yes,
on radio.
Yes, on radio.
Yeah.
So we played the show on radio. It was very good to have that experience.
That was a first, by the way.
Yes.
I remember that because you see what people are doing now, live streaming.
Yeah.
Hey, how can we hold on? That was a first, and that was a biggie.
Huge first.
Yeah.
I think, if I'm not wrong, I don't know if I'm really the first. I think Waire had done that or a version of that with Homeboys, but I definitely know I was the first who then did it at the scale we did. It was a full band.
Do you know how I know it was the first? Or one of the first.
Yeah.
I worked at Google at the time, head of G+.
Yes.
And at that time when live streaming was happening, it was going to be a first to get Kenyans to live stream.
Yeah.
So I remember now at Google they were having a conversation about what you're doing. That was huge. Yeah.
And I'm sorry that I'm underplaying how important that was.
Yeah. Even me, I was going to let it pass, but then you just hit me up like...
Sorry, John Rabba. Because when I went to John with this like harebrained idea. Okay. So I'd seen this idea in Switzerland. So in Suizo, the KBC, right? The KBC of Suizo, see now it has like the many different
studios,
the way it's set up, everything is set up for performance. So the studio station, the radio station itself has multiple places literally that are designed for live performance. There's sound, there's light engineers. It's very geared. We're a radio station, so we're going to have musicians here. So make it possible for musicians to share themselves. So I'd had this experience of doing a radio show. My apologies for the phone. I'd had the experience of doing a radio show. So when I came here and I was telling John Rabba, there's this thing we do in Switzerland. When you take your music to the radio, you actually do a show. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah.
And then they film it and then they're broadcasting it. So I was like, John, see, we just do that. Like we're at HBR, you have everything. Thank God, John Rabbi is just like, sounds like a dope idea.
Let's do it.
I wanted to do that for some time. You're down being the guinea pig. Let's do this. I was like, cool. So
that's crazy. Because before that, at Max, what somebody would go is just with their guitar.
Yeah.
And sing live while playing the guitar. But this, you're talking about full live band experience. I think BBC One on their YouTube channel sort of do a lot of that.
They do a lot of that.
Yeah.
So these are the things that make me so frustrated about the media infrastructure here. It is all built for advertisers. Nobody actually thinks, why are you doing this thing that you're doing? No one prioritizes the creators of those things. You don't ask, how can we build wealth or equity with artists? How do we make something that artists are involved in? Of course, there's an opportunity for advertisers to plug in. We can all eat if we do if you center the artist, if you make this thing about the artist first, and then the advertiser follows,
That's so true.
That's a whole other topic. We're going to do that in my final episode. I have thoughts for media owners.
Sour. One being CTA.
But anyway, yes. But anyway, so we did that in 2015. So 2017, fast forward, I'm back now making music with Akina Greg. I will say that I was very unhappy that summer when we began making the music. I just felt, Yeah, 2016, 2017, those years they were not easy years to live through with a business model that is changing and the feeling of like, or maybe I just agreed to try and move to Swizo for a year and then we see what happens. You know, there's always that thing at the back of your mind where it felt to me I was underachieving on both fronts. It can be so much more if I just chose one over the other. Those were the hardest years of my polymath life, I must say. Everything else before had been hard, but those years were emotionally very difficult. I was very resentful. I felt like it must have been terrible working with me in those years. I give a blanket apology to anyone and everyone who ever interacted with me with those years. They were not good years. I was not in a good headspace. Yeah, and you're just underachieving at everything. The flip side is, by doing the shows in Swizo, when I would then perform at Blankets in Nairobi, Snomi would bring the Swiss show. Bro.
It will be fire.
Bro.
It will be fire.
I want to take a minute to shout out my visual director, Mr. Ojin Gode. He's also the one who's made that beautiful piece that you're seeing behind. And Turn on the Lights, Ojin saved that video. When we got it from the guy who shot it, I didn't refuse to put his name on the video. I was so angry. He bears me witness. Yani tulitukanana. Then finally, my pal who had made the connection, out of respect for Ngash, that's why I put that guy's name on that video. Because I was like, that is not what we agreed on. But... so I took the footage to Ojin and I was like, save this thing. And Ojin is like, got you. He's our art director for everything Africa Nouveau. All those things you see, that's Ojin. So just go on Instagram and find. He's, I think, one of the most prolific visual storytellers in Africa right now, hands down.
Sweet.
So Ojin, Lucy, the stylist, who is also the costumes. So when I call Lucy stylist, I feel like I'm really underselling her. Lucy is visuals, but her language is clothes. I don't know if I'm making sense, because she's also a set designer. So tulijenga set, Ojin put some visuals that were like a church. There's this, that was the one where I performed right before American Boy. What's her name? What's her name?
I hear it in my head.
What's her name? Estelle. We had Estelle come to Blankets that year.
What?
We had Aloe Black, we had Estelle, we had AKA.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, the quality of the 2016-2017's Blankets was very high, very top. So this one we can't argue. Production value had gone up, but also the artists we were able to get during that time was very cool.
And you decided, let's just stick to this
but
model.
But the one for Estelle, nakumbuka nikiosha Estelle, Evie. Because I again, it's one of the things that we've learned over time. The value of sending a correct brief about who we are. But artists wa Madru, a good number of artists that we've interacted with from abroad, they
Darao Africa.
Particularly from America, they have a very warped sense of what is Africa, or it's what they've seen, like, oh, it's like Nigeria. So they've seen the excesses. They've never seen the middle. I don't know how to say. It's like either there's a hyper-romanticized idea of Africa, or there's this hyper-commercialized idea, right? Because then they hear Rick Ross went to Nigeria and made sijui how much. Sijui Nicki Minaj went to like Angola and made how much. So I just find that they're very poorly briefed. But Estelle was particularly difficult to work with. And finally, Alikuja on the day of the gig. She arrived that morning. We're like, no problem, whatever. Me, I didn't come to play. Between me, Lucy, Ojin, our show was like A1. So I remember being backstage in the 15-minute changeover when her band stuff was being put on stage, and just watching her like literally changing her like set. I don't know what she had thought it was going to be. She came very late to the venue. So I guess when she got here, she was like, snap. What you mean is I'm playing at a real music festival with real musicians who've brought their A game. I remember her like changing her set. It was very gratifying to me to be
because
like
of the
now,
way you threw down.
Hey. So now when we changed, now we've gone back into our incognito clothes so I can walk around Blankets. I always want to walk around and just hear, eavesdrop on people's
You're
conversations.
polymath now you're no longer Muthoni the musician.
So when I'm walking around in the audience, a lot of that's also when you get a lot of honest feedback. Just listening to what people say, just go there near the toilets, listen to the frustration.
The playhouse has messed you. You won't be able to do this again.
Exactly. So after the show,
But hold
me
on.
and Lucy always wear incognito clothes.
I want to ask about the show performance, because the last time you've talked about a show performance, I remember there was in Uko episode 3, you guys were staring at you.
Yeah.
Now,
Episode 3 I told you about a very poor performance in 2009.
yeah, you're back on these blankets and
Yeah,
you're
that was
bringing
2009. Then 2010, between 2010 and 2012, I played sporadically.
a few,
2013, I played sporadically at Blanket, so I didn't used to play at every show. But I must be honest, I always felt like I was playing at a substandard level. We still hadn't really learned how to use the half live effectively. So I didn't play a lot in those years, as much as I could have played. And then in 2014, when we did the 2-day, I asked to play. And my team told me, the Blankets team, they were like, you're not ready to play this show. Because I had the Muhahe of the new album that we'd made with Nainihu in 2013. I felt bad that our deal with Standard Group hadn't worked out. So I felt like if I just give it to the audience directly, they're going to see what I'm talking about. And this thing, whatever I thought was going to happen would happen. But I had forgotten that to have a good stage performance, you have to spend loads of hours in rehearsal and to be really focused on that thing. And I didn't spend loads of hours in rehearsal because I spent loads of hours solving the problems of the gig and stealing time to go to rehearsal. So my 2014 performance at Blankets wasn't that great either. It was just like, okay. So then 2014, I didn't perform. I performed once after I came back from Swizo. Now when we're doing Kenyans only, I think, in fact, I performed the same one as King Kaka. So that one was a very good one. But, and it had been a long time since people saw me on stage, and I performed, it was really good.
Okay.
And then they were like, oh, that's kind of cool. But it didn't have the impact because we didn't have like the numbers, you know, as I explained before, 2014 was like a weird year for us at Blankets. Then 2015, I didn't perform. I performed at Africa Nouveau. That was dope. At Africa Nouveau, and our light engineer came from Swizo. So we stole Africa Nouveau. Definitely Muthoni Drummer Queen stole Africa Nouveau in 2015. I should also say, for us, Africa Nouveau is one of the most favorite things that we get to produce, because we meet so many cool Africans, right? So like, you're kicking it with Akina Bodhisattva, you're kicking it with
the creative industry
of Africa, right? So like fashion makers, visual artists, DJs, producers. It's a very enriching, like everywhere you turn, there's just vibes. There's just creators talking to each other about stuff and things. Africa Nouveau, in my view, is like the best thing we've ever produced. I obviously may be biased. But anyway, so now 2016, now in the years 2016, 2017, when I performed at Blankets, I would have my show from Swizo. So just copy paste. And then now the things I don't have in Swizo. So in Swizo, for example, screens are not a thing. Only like the very huge festivals and only for the main stage. So unless you're playing, so you can play a very big festival and not play main stage. Okay? Which is what happened in a lot of those years. We weren't yet on main stage. We were building our name. But we had a main stage show. We've always had a main stage show from the beginning because Greg is a Jedi master and he just like knows how to compose a show. I've learned so much from Greg and Hook.
Okay, you've said something there that somebody may not understand. So what do you mean when you have two different shows? So what is different from on your main stage show that would not be on the main stage show?
Okay. So generally, main stages tend to be quite huge. Like physically, a main stage is at a festival. So first, I want you to contextualize this in the sense of how many humans are at this festival. So think about Kasarani. When Kasarani is at full capacity and everyone is sitting, that's 60,000 people, right? So now remove 10,000 people. That's a standard festival in a lot of, so festivals will have between 20,000 to 50,000 attendees a day. When you have 20,000 people, okay, so Nyayo Stadium is 27,000, 27 or 29,000.
Almost all the blankets and wine in one day.
Okay. So when you have, so when you have 30,000 people in a space, you have to think about literally what do you do with 30,000 people? That's a lot of people. So quite often festivals will have multiple stages because that's a lot of taste. 30,000 people means you have a wide range of taste. It also means that just in terms of like avoiding stampedes so you put different good acts on different stages. So instead of having 40,000 people pushing at a stage, maybe now you have 20,000 people here, you have another 10 there, you have another 5, you have a club tent where there's DJs who are playing. So it's just a question of like fulfilling the diversity of the audience, and then also literally they don't have 20, 30, 40,000 people pushing each other trying to watch this
one act.
Yeah. So what that means is when you end up playing so the main stage generally tends to be quite huge. So you have to fill up a huge stage. So when people play main stage, so you can have, as I've seen now on tour, like the big bands come, they do their own set, they build a set. So the stage is actually quite huge, you can build a set. You have maybe like dancers, you have a lot of things to to saturate the senses of the audience, okay? So most bands I have found have 2 shows. There's this show that they put on main stage, which is the A-game show.
Yeah.
So your dancers, your sets, your visuals, your lighting, your costumes, and then you have this other one that you play when you're playing on the smaller stages, where it can just be you and your band.
Okay? I get it.
Us guys, from the beginning, we built the main stage show. So there's been many stages where we go and we're like, our show has overpowered this stage. Our show has overpowered this audience, you know. Or festival producers come and tell us your show was even more professional than our festival itself. But this was always the vision.
You're trying to get on the main stage.
Correct.
Yep.
But also, really, GR is a Jedi master. And just the way he sees, he's the one who taught me this idea that a show should fulfill you have to occupy all the senses, the visual sense and the audio sense. This is why you costume, for example. This is, you have to fulfill my senses. I don't know how else to say it, except like if you follow Beyonce, just go, you'll even see people taking pictures of her. Like, did you even see she changed her nail polish between the set? Those are the things. You have to fulfill something visually for people, and then you have to fulfill something audio-wise for people. He's the one who taught me that you have to conduct emotions. So unlike how I used to think about a show, which is that you gradually build it up, so climax nyuko mwisho, he's like, that's not how it is. In fact, you're always ever moving towards climax, but you're always building a journey with ups, downs, up, down. You have to give people time to breathe in the middle of the set. You have to conduct the emotional color of the show. So when you play hits only, that's what you occupy one emotion. But there's so many other emotions that people feel, you know. Where's the part for sadness? Where's the part for reflection?
Exactly.
Where's the part for love, longing? So it's your job as an artist to conduct this thing. So it looks like a graph that's like this: up, down, up, 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 breathing up. You're always going up.
I get it. You're
so
foreplaying
now,
us.
Correct.
Musically, giving us some good foreplay.
The whole thing, you know what I mean? So it's like 1 hour of like a fulfilling, as opposed to just like bam, slam, bam, thank you, ma'am. And for the next 60 minutes, I'm just like. So we'd learned all those things by doing. So now me coming to Nairobi, I don't need to explain. I'm just saying, yo, Lucy Robbie, this is the vibe. She's like inside. I'm just like, yo, Ojin, this is the vibe. I already know what the show is meant to sound like.
But what I'm hearing from you is that you already had people that you could connect with here in Nairobi who could provide that A-game.
Me, I even think everybody we need is here. The only thing that I really think we have to work on as a live industry here in Kenya is lighting. When I went to Switzerland is when I learned lighting. You know, I encourage you, Mr. Richie, now here to please put for them some snippets from our show in France 2018 Transmusical. So there's some things that you only know when you know.
Listen, no hype. The last thing we're gonna do together is a song for my city, Nairobi. Nairobi is the capital city of Kenya. And when you come to Nairobi, because you have to come to Nairobi one time in your life, It's on the bucket list. Is that Nairobi in the house? That's some Nairobi in the house over here. Okay. So you have to come to Nairobi, and when you come to Nairobi, you must know this song. I will say, Nine nine. You'll say ni Yahoo, okay? Like Yahoo, the email address. Sava? The second time, ni Yahoo. So 2 Yahoos, okay? Ça va? Vous êtes prêts? Ça va. Okay, we try. You say?
Chest drummer queen, sound boy, you're gonna die tonight. If you're chest drummer queen, sound boy, you're gonna die. Why Clef said so. Hey.
When you see it, you're like, that is what lighting is meant to do. That's the thing that we have to solve here. There's so much light. There's so many lights. There's so many companies with the gear. But the owners of the companies don't invest in their people. You have gear because you want to make money. So your job is to make sure that corporates have gear for their corporate launches. There's nothing wrong with that. But you don't make that thing available for artists, except Tom of Live Gigs, who on many occasions was like, just come here, tell me I set up for you the warehouse and you guys can like play and just like learn the equipment. Tom is the one who lent me my first piece of like a drum pad. He's like, you like drumming, take this thing, go learn it, come back after a few months when you know how it works. Except Tom of Live Gigs. So think about how many companies you know that have gear. There is nobody else who's ever been like, I would like for you to further this thing that you do. I've sat with an owner of a company here and I'm like, I can get our lighting engineer to come and you run a workshop. You don't have to do it by yourself. You, as the boss, call the other bosses of these other companies. All of you bring your light engineers. My light engineer will come here and run a workshop for lighting. Because we saw it at Africa Nouveau, John was at the light desk. And so John is doing this thing. So I don't know this obviously because I'm on stage. It's John who then tells me later. The owner of the company has turned on his phone and the whole show he's just filming over John's shoulder, like everything that John is doing. And so John feels very uncomfortable and it's like, bro, can I like work? Could you not like film everything? So now John telling me, I found that so weird, and I'm explaining to him it's probably because this is the first time he has seen this gear that he has and he owns doing that thing that you are doing. So what he's really looking to do is to learn. So then John is like, if I had understood that, I would have taken some time to explain what I'm doing. For him, the cultural mix, he was just like, it's completely different. This is hyper unprofessional. Like, what are you doing, bro? Okay.
Yeah, we've gone down a rabbit hole.
Dude, I told him. I told you. You know yourself. You. You know, he made me do a lot of useless work. I set it up with the light engineer. We looked into flights, and then he just ghosted me, stopped picking my calls. It's very dumb of you, Kevin. Very dumb. Because here we have this scarcity mentality. If I invest in you and then you leave my company and you go work somewhere else, I'm like, okay, so instead of doing that, why don't you and all your competitors come together? So you guys have like 10 lighting people amongst yourselves. Train them so that they become a shared resource. Ultimately, somebody's gonna leave you anyway. Don't you want your employees to grow out of you and to go and set up their own things? Don't you want people to grow? We don't want people to grow here. Scarcity mentality is too high. Anyway, so we need lighting engineers who know what's up. I've seen this.
So the whole core of why that's why I love the rabbit hole, because there's learnings like crazy, and I know we'll still come back to that. But this was my bigger question, was like, what I'm trying to figure out, what was the response of now your show?
Listen, so now me, I knew my show had worked. Well, now what am I walking around the audience clothes? Okay, so now incognito. I'm just like moving incognito and hearing what people are saying. But two people that night I cried twice. So first there's this babe who found me. I don't know her, she doesn't know me, but she noticed me. I was just there moving incognito, and then she came, I guess, to tell me how she felt about the show. And she was crying. So even thinking about this making me feel like crying. And she was just crying. She was so moved by the artistic experience. And I'm like, you're right. That's why you cry when you watch, I don't know, for the first time when you're over there watching your Beyonce. It's so that you're adoring her, you think that she's better than you. It's the
emotion she's evoked.
Input, right, allows you to feel such a wide range of emotion. And I always thought,
so the artistic input has unlocked emotions within you.
It's not really about her. Of course it's about her to the extent that you like the music and there's great admiration for, like, you know, when you see an artist being their best, not even an artist, any human being, football, when you're watching a footballer having a good day at being a footballer, their technique, their skill set, there's a great admiration you have for that as a human being, right? So, but beyond that admiration for the human being, I think what artists have is we are able to give you a range of feelings. And because me, I don't know what my song has to do with your life. Maybe this is the song that got you through your dad's death or your mom's divorce or whatever those things. When an artist does their job, when I'm able to give you this wide landscape of emotions, you feel in the gaps with your own
story,
whatever is going on in your heart. So that day, she gave me that feedback. So now I'd had that feedback in Switzerland. But it's easy for me in Switzerland to be like, but you know, I'm also kind of novelty. I'm just like babe from Africa. It's a lot, you know. So I'm like the outsider. It's easy to give love to the outsider. When I had it in Nairobi, just there walking around in the darkness in blankets, that was a very emotional day for both of us. And I'm like, I had not had that. It had been a very long time since I succeeded on stage. And then to succeed on stage in Kenya on our platform.
That's crazy.
And to be understood in the way I had intended to be understood.
Yep.
That was a very powerful experience for her and for me. And then now when I went and found my friends, so now as I'm walking, I'm hearing people who don't know it's me. They're just like, I'm just seeing people, a bunch of people just like leaving. And I'm just hearing, Manze Muthoni should have been the one who closed. Estelle apana. And I'm like, yes. Because the grief she had given us. Yeah. I was like, yeah. Very good. The truth does not lie. The vibes don't lie. The vibes don't lie. That thing she made us feel as the people who are trying to help her have this opportunity to connect with her fans here.
Yeah.
Because that's really what we are doing. We are enabling you as an artist to come and be your best. And the kind of hell that we experienced putting that gig together.
For you.
For us.
And
so
the audience,
we knew
yes.
by that point that if this is how we feel, the audience will feel it. But there are some artists who are complete assholes to us, but they translate when they come to the audience. They know how to turn it. They bring their whole A game. She didn't bring her whole A game. So then the audience felt that. And she came on after us, guys who had like costume change, dancers, like our screens. Like we were able to, we conducted the emotion. Us guys brought our festival game. I don't know what she brought. So now just hearing people being like, Muthoni Ndonga ko headliner. Muthoni should have headlined that thing. Hey, you guys have you seen how Muthoni's thing? So I'm just like, yeah. Our team is strong. Our team is doing good. So that felt really good. Then the same night now, when I went and finally found my friends. So now my friends weren't even watching the show. They were just like, this show is boring. We've already watched the show we wanted. So they were kicking it to go at the end of the festival somewhere. So when I went and found them, Kaz was there that day. And Kaz is the one who gave me my flowers as an artist. So she, because Kaz herself, she's a musician. She's an artist actually.
Yes.
Kaz is a plethora. So she knows what it means to be able to do a stage. She could think about what it means physically to be able to pull off the show we had pulled off, the costuming, the staging. So she saw it both as an artist and as a person who wasn't a fan. She was a fan of me as a human being, I guess. You know, she'd been there to help me from 2009, but she had never experienced now me as a musician that she could admire as a fan.
Does
that make sense?
100%.
That in those years, 2016, 2017, my show convinced the people who would come for blankets that I was an artist worth her salt.
This is so cool. You know, Yani, I really wanted us to get here. As we've been doing the Playhouse, the comments in this have just been like, give this chick her flowers, give this chick her flowers. Like, you know, but what I'm hearing is that the audience, even strangers, people who are not your thing, appreciated the art. Yeah. And this is, for me, the most important part of why I've dwelled here, in your purity of you doing you. Yeah. So it was like all these years of me fighting.
That's how we became friends. Chiki, for example. Chiki came with Bien, and then after she's just like, you have to introduce me to this babe.
No way.
They were wife. Like, yeah, they were so emotional. So between Chiki and Bien, they were like so emotional, just trying to explain how good it was. So for me to be hearing it from Bien, right, who in my mind is like, yo, you're a top of range artist, for him to be like, the artistry, that's what I want.
That's crazy. So
it felt, so on the music side, it was gratifying. It was also very ungratifying. I'm like in Switzerland, should I home? Anyway.
Okay.
So that was what was happening in reality. Those moments are few. Then you just go back to the reality of budgets, looking for money. Can you survive your employees? We've run out of this money. Can we?
So you go back to Switzerland now. You begin working on?
So now I start, 2017. Now we are fully working on She.